Hi everybody. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to create a teaching artifact. And specifically, we're going to focus on writing prompts, um, but I'll give a bit of an overview of what a teaching artifact is to begin with. So let's just get started. So the first question to answer is, what is a teaching artifact? There's lots of different sorts of teaching artifacts, and you might think of it as anything that you produce that you could include in a portfolio that is evidence of your teaching or your teaching philosophy or your capacity as a teacher, so on and so forth. One example might be a syllabus, and a syllabus is useful as a teaching artifact because it demonstrates how you would present an entire class. A syllabus generally does not have a ton of specific detail of assignments or anything like that, but it will give the audience, so someone who might be hiring you, an overview of or an understanding of how you think of a class as a whole. And that's really valuable because um, they'll be able to see how well planned out your class is, and they'll be able to see a lot about how you turn your teaching philosophy into a practice. Um, Another sort of teaching artifact is a lesson plan. And a lesson plan demonstrates how you would present information on a given day. There's lots of different types of lesson plans. Some teachers that I know create really detailed lesson plans where they plan out the entire class down to the minute. Other teachers are a little bit more free form and they take just some general notes. Um, there's strengths and weaknesses to each of these approaches, and a lot of it has to do with what kind of teacher you are. And you'll probably find that you're the kind of teacher either who does a lot of detailed lesson plans or someone who does less detailed lesson plans. Um, the last type of teaching artifact that is worth mentioning here, and there are others, but the last I want to mention here is the assignment prompt. And this demonstrates what you ask students to do. So this demonstrates how you frame the work of the class. It's how you demonstrate how you're going to be measuring the student work against the outcomes. And a writing prompt in particular demonstrates how you think of writing and what you would have students to do to accomplish a particular outcome. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to focus in on the writing prompt, and I'm going to put together a writing prompt based on the process paradigm um, to sort of demonstrate how I think through building a writing prompt. So I'm going to be moving back and forth between this PowerPoint presentation and then a Word document. Both of those will be available. Um, so let's just dive right in. So my first step when I create a writing prompt is to determine what I hope students will learn from this lesson. Hopefully, I'm designing a lesson with a really specific outcome in mind. Probably if I've done a good job designing the class backwards, I'll know exactly how each assignment is going to fit into the overall flow of the class and how all of the assignments are going to build up so that students accomplish the course outcomes at the end of the term. So I probably will have in mind what I want this lesson to do, or what I want students to learn. So I start out by determining what I hope students will learn from this lesson. Then I decide what I will collect from students that will demonstrate their learning. This is a really important. This first and second point are really important because they go hand in hand and they might be counterintuitive. So, oftentimes we default to asking students to write essays. However, an essay is a fairly complex beast and it involves a lot of different steps. And so, maybe I don't want a student to have to write a whole essay. What I want is the student to learn, say, how to identify a rhetorical situation or to assess a rhetorical situation. I don't need to have them write an entire essay to accomplish that. Instead, maybe I just want to create a new kind of assignment that asks them to quite literally describe a rhetorical situation. That could be an activity. So I need to think about what am I going to collect from students that will demonstrate their learning, and that learning must match with what I hope the students will learn from this lesson or this module or however I've built out the class. After I've decided what I want to collect from students and what I want them to learn, then I need to consider what I can realistically expect students to already know. So This will vary depending on where you are in the term. If you're at the very beginning of the term, then you can't make a ton of assumptions. Students might be really advanced, other students might be less advanced. They'll probably span the entire gamut. By the middle of the term, you'll have a much better sense as to what you can expect from students, or what you can expect students to already know because you'll have covered a lot of material so far. Um, so a bit of this depends on um, on where you're at in the quarter with this assignment. Next, write a list of deliverables into an assignment prompt. So I would consider what I can expect students to already know. Maybe I've adjusted the assignment, what I've wanted to collect from students a little bit, and what I want them to learn based on what they should know. Um, so then I'll write a list of deliverables into an assignment prompt. These are the things that I'm going to collect. It's just the stuff that they're going to turn in. It could be like a little bulleted checklist. That's what I like to do, so that the students can go through this list and say, I did this, I did this, I did this, and they're done. Next, I write a short summary of what the assignment asks students to accomplish. So this is no more than 2 or 3 sentences, and it basically explains in short what I want students to accomplish. Usually I'll put this in the very beginning of the prompt and say, in short, you must do this. Next, I'll write a detailed explanation of why students will accomplish this. So why am I having students do this? I like being really explicit and explaining what the student is doing this assignment for. Um, Ideally, none of the assignments should feel like busy work. And if an assignment does feel like busy work to students, it means that I'm not doing a good job explaining what I want the students to accomplish or why I want them to accomplish it. Next, I'll write any background information into the assignment prompt. So if there's just a little bit of summary I need to do to make sure that the students have touched on all of the points in the reading or something like that, I'll put those into the assignment prompt. Hopefully, if they're reading that background information and they're totally confused and totally lost, that's the time they'll come to ask me questions because it means they missed something in a previous lesson. Next, I'll write, and this depends a bit on uh, how formal the assignment is or how much structure I want to give students. But if I want to give students a lot of structure, then I'll write a sequence of steps that I would go through to accomplish this assignment. If I want lots of structure, I'll make those steps quite specific, like do this, then do this, then do this. If I want the assignment to be more open-ended, then I might not include a sequence of steps. I might just leave it at, here's what you need to do. Finally, and this is important, revise and test. So once I've created an assignment prompt, if I have time and if there's space, I would like to first give it to some of my peers, some other teachers who know how to build prompts and who I trust. I'll give it to them and see what they think. And we do sort of peer review on our writing prompts. Um, Also, I will just have students do the assignment. I'm flexible enough in my teaching and in my teaching philosophy that if an assignment is just totally terrible, I will give students tons of leeway and I'll curve the grade so that everybody gets high scores, and I'll adjust the assignment on the fly. I have no problem being flexible with students, especially with assignments that have not been tested before, because the assignment is a sort of test. So, um, not only of the student's ability, but also of my ability to explain a particular thing to students. And so I might find that if the assignment goes, if students' work is totally uh, off course, I want to look at what did I do wrong in my teaching, and I'll talk about that in just one moment. So before I actually build one of these, I want to talk through one more slide. So a really important thing, it's super important to be willing to revise. Writing prompts ask students to do work, of course, obviously. Writing prompts also serve as research instruments. So they will allow us to gather data from the students on what they understand. So student writing is an evidence of students' best understanding of your prompt and the course materials. Um, Generally speaking, students are good, want to do the right thing, and will do the best that they possibly can. Even if they don't understand, they'll try as hard as they can. So you can look at their work and say, hey, this is the best. This is the work that comes from the best understanding of the prompt from a student perspective. Now, if you have one or two students who get way off track, the issue might be them. Like, it's totally true. There's some students who don't pay attention, and if there's usually is no more than one or two in a class, unless something else is wrong. In that case, the problem might be them. They just didn't read the prompt carefully or they didn't pay attention. Now, if more than a couple students got off track, it's probably on you. So if I get an assignment, if I create an assignment and give it to students, and I find that, more than a handful of students did totally the wrong thing, then I need to look back at my assignment and also how I taught the material to see what did I do wrong, because the students try as hard as they can. If they get it really wrong, I did something wrong. So, another thing, you might find that the student products are good, but they do not do not demonstrate the learning outcome that you hoped. So, you might have a whole stack of great essays, but none of them are actually accomplishing what you wanted the students to accomplish. That's an issue, and that probably has something to do with a misdesign in the course or a misdesign in the writing prompt. Um, because students will take up the prompt as they're going to take it up as best that they can. And if they misinterpret it, produce good work, but they misinterpreted the prompt, it means that your prompt was perhaps not clear enough. So, um, if you find perhaps that there's something that's really difficult for students to understand, or the prompt is fairly complex, or you're pushing the boat out fairly far and you're asking students to do something extremely difficult, if that's the case, then it might be a good idea to even model the assignment and actually like go through it and show them how you would do it. So um, that's actually a little bit of what I'm doing here. So that's the general overview, and that's what I'd like to begin by covering. Now I'm going to go through and build an assignment prompt. I'll go through these steps here on the previous slide, the steps 1 through 9. And I'll talk through that. So now would be a reasonable time to take a pause, get a glass of water, and then come back and I'll go through the second part. The second part might be a little bit long. All right, welcome back. So I'm going to start with a prompt here. Let's zoom in a little bit so it's easier to see. And so I like to start by just giving myself a little bit of a note of what I'm hoping students will learn from this writing prompt. So I'm just choosing this at random, but I think from process, I really am interested in thinking about how students come to, or how students learn about the rhetorical situation, and I'm really interested in teaching students how to look at a rhetorical situation and try and assess how they should respond to this situation. So, my goal is to have students learn. I want students to learn how to read a rhetorical situation. And once again, a rhetorical situation is a social context that demands students to write. A writing prompt puts students into a rhetorical situation. That would be a great example of one. So I want students to learn how to read the rhetorical situation. I think that this is valuable because my goal as a writing teacher is to help students improve their writing. And I believe in my teaching philosophy and in my writing philosophy that understanding the rhetorical situation or being able to read a rhetorical situation makes writers or helps make writers better at responding to that situation. And as a result, they write better. So that's what I want them to be able to do. How do I want students to be able to prove it to me that they read a rhetorical situation? Well, this can be tricky because I need to both simulate a rhetorical situation and I need to give them an opportunity to demonstrate how they read that rhetorical situation. So the first bit I need to create a rhetorical situation. So my first thing I need to do is create a rhetorical situation. Second, and then second, give students the opportunity to read the situation and prove that they read it. Okay, that's fair enough. So what rhetorical situation, you might ask? Honestly, I don't think it matters that much. It would be nice if it's a rhetorical situation that students care about, but I'm not asking students how to read a particular rhetorical situation. I'm asking students how to read any rhetorical situation. So I'm looking at helping them develop these sort of meta-level skills that will allow them to go into any writing context or any situation that asks them to write and begin to look around and figure out what is this situation asking them to do. So I just need to create a rhetorical situation. One that's commonly used in writing classes that I see a lot is the letter to the editor. That one's okay. It's a little bit dated because people don't really read letters to the editor in the newspaper anymore, but it could be a pretty good prompt. Another example might be a proposal. If I can set up the class so that they're writing a proposal perhaps for a grant or a grant proposal, that could work. I think in this case, I think I want them to at least prepare to write. I think I'll have them prepare to write a cover letter for an application into the major of their choice. So this would be just like the little, this would be the little like first cover letter statement that they have to put onto their application packet. So that's what we're going to have them do. Or perhaps instead of the major of their choice, how about an application into, well, the major of their choice if they're freshmen, we'll say that's the case. This is a first year writing class. You could also, if you wanted your writers to be seniors or juniors in high school, this could be an application letter for colleges. Doesn't really matter, but I'm choosing cover letter for application as the major of their choice. So that's the rhetorical situation. I know that this situation is going to demand that they understand the major and its expectations. And they'll also have to understand their own skills. So that's the rhetorical situation I'm going to create. Now, do they necessarily need to write the entire cover letter? Not necessarily, because I'm not assessing their ability to write cover letters. I'm assessing their ability to read the rhetorical situation. So it would be sufficient for them to just analyze the rhetorical situation and report on it. So that's what I'm going to have them do because this is a small assignment. I don't want them to go through the whole process. Perhaps this is the first assignment in a sequence that will lead up to a cover letter. That might be the case. But for now, we'll just say that this is an assessment of the rhetorical situation. So they will submit a report on the rhetorical situation. So that report is going to include, first, a brief description of the situation. Second, it's going to include a description of the audiences. So who is going to read this application letter? It's also going to include a description of their competitors who else is applying for the major. Then it's also going to include a description of the resources the student has to respond to, or has to demonstrate their qualifications. And then right before this, we might also add a description of the expected tone and style of writing for students entering the major. Okay, good. So those are the things that the students are going to describe, and I'm going to be able to then look at what they turn in that answers these questions, those questions that I just listed off. And I'll be able to see if they did a good job reading the rhetorical situation of that application into the major or not. And I'll be able to give them feedback on all of these points. So I have a sense now of what I want students to learn, what I need to do to get students to prove that they learned that. They're going to turn in a report of the rhetorical situation, and I've created a rhetorical situation that they're going to respond to, or I've defined a specific rhetorical situation. So now I'm going to write up the deliverables. So I'm going to create a new page, and we'll start here. And I like to use headings on my writing prompts because it just makes it easier for them to navigate, whether they are looking at the document or they're using a screen reader. Headings make documents much easier to navigate. So definitely use heading features when you're creating writing prompts. So deliverables. I like to call my my deliverables section deliverables. I know that some of my peers get offended by the term deliverables because it sounds too much like corporate mumbo jumbo. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. So for my deliverables, you can call it whatever you want. Be consistent in your class, though. So the things they're going to turn in: one, a docx or PDF format file answers the questions above, a list of short paragraphs answering the questions above. And so it means I'm going to have to give them the particular questions above. And then finally, due on May 9, 2021 on Canvas. How they'll submit it. Peer reviews required and due on May 16th, 2021, something like that. So I've got deliverables. You might also say about what size it should be, but if I was having them write an essay, I would give them a size range on the docx or PDF format file line probably, but this is going to be short paragraphs. I might even put in like 100 to 200 words, 100 words-ish to 150 words each. Yeah, answering the questions above. Okay, great. So now I'm going to start pushing this down. Now I want my in short. I usually have a short description at the beginning of the assignment. I'll call it in short or overview. You can call it whatever you like, just be consistent. And then we'll move back to normal font and we'll say, this assignment asks you to analyze and report on a rhetorical situation. We'll be choosing a major of your choice at the university and analyzing the rhetorical situation that asks potential applicants to write cover letters to enter the major. You will not writing the cover letter. You will just be analyzing the rhetorical situation. All right, so now we've got our in short section completed. So this will give the students a short overview of what they have to do for this assignment, but I like to give them a chance to have more details. So I'll have a more detailed section. Again, I'm using a heading to make it easier to navigate. So more details, and in the more details section, I'll explain the why of the assignment. Why am I having students complete this assignment? I'm also going to expand on what they're going to do, so and any background knowledge they might need to complete that assignment. So I've already typed this up, so I'm just going to copy and paste it so you don't have to watch me type. So when it says, whenever you write, you're writing to a particular audience in a particular context. The audience and context, along with your goals, make up the rhetorical situation. If you produce a text that successfully aligns your goals with the demands of the audience and context, your writing will be good. If your writing fails to do this, then the writing will not produce the desired effect on the audience, and likely your writing will not be considered good. This assignment gives you a chance to learn how to assess the rhetorical situation and prepare to respond effectively to it, which in turn will make you a better and more effective writer. So in this paragraph, I'm explaining why the students might do this assignment, what they're going to get out of it. Specifically, they'll become better, more effective writers because they can assess a rhetorical situation or read a rhetorical situation. Um, and then a little bit of background is some backgrounds about the rhetorical situation. So there's a short definition of what the rhetorical situation is. Specifically, it is the audience and the context along with the writer's goals. That's what makes up the rhetorical situation. So perhaps before this assignment, I would have had some lessons where students read about, or some activities where students read about rhetorical situations. And we probably will have discussed them a little bit in class before they actually have to go and do this kind of research themselves. Then, to complete this assignment, I would like you to select a major here at XYZ University that you would like to apply to. You will be preparing to write a cover letter for the application to that major. You will not actually write the letter. Instead, you'll simply do research about the rhetorical situation so that you can assess its demands. I've written out a list of questions that you can answer as you read the situation. Please write about a paragraph on each of the following prompts. And then it's the same list as I have up in my notes. Briefly describe the rhetorical situation, describe the audience of your letter, describe your competitors, and describe the expected tone and style of writing. And then last, look at your skills and experience. How are you qualified to be accepted into this major? So students will go through and answer those questions, and I'll be looking for a document again with a short paragraph for each of the questions above. And again, all my details are here. So I feel like this is a pretty solid writing prompt. You'll notice that they're not actually writing an essay per se, but by doing this process, they'll have gone through the motions of reading a rhetorical situation, and hopefully that skill is something that they will take with them. And I'll be able to give them feedback on their writing to tell them like what they might look for, some things that they might have missed, some things that they did extremely well, or some things that they saw that was really useful. This way, if they take up this information or this knowledge and experience and carry it with them, they'll be in a better position to assess rhetorical situations. Now, I gave them a list of specific prompts to answer because I've found in the past that if I just ask students to analyze a rhetorical situation, they struggle a little bit because most of them have not learned about rhetorical situations in the past and have no experience with it. So I provide a little bit more scaffolding, a little bit more structure In a future assignment, I would ask them to perhaps actually write this application letter and expect them to do the rest of the process themselves, having experienced it from this assignment. And I might prompt that transfer in my instructions in a future assignment. But this is a writing prompt that I think would work pretty well. And again, I have a particular skill that I want them to learn or a skill that I want them to demonstrate, and the assignment is focused on having them do that work and demonstrate to me that they were able to learn that. It also gives them practice in the process. So um, that's about it for this video. You'll have access to both this document. I wouldn't turn in these notes, submit these or give these notes to the students. That's mostly for me. I would just delete this page, but I'll leave it on the document so you can see it. And then they would just get the in short, more details and deliverables sections. So um, if I was doing this in an online context, I would just create this in Canvas, and Canvas would accept the assignments. If this is an in-person class where I'm accepting paper, then I would give them this paper as a handout. So um, that wraps it up for how I would put together this writing prompt, and I hope that this video is useful for you and that you enjoyed it.